The Butterfly Effect is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and it is a psychological thriller in which we follow Evan, who throughout his adolescence, he had frequent blackouts, and then when we meet up with him during his college years, he comes to find out that he has abilities in which he can time travel back to those moments where he would black out, and he will basically use those moments to change aspects of his adolescence that were traumatic to him and hopefully have a better outcome of his future. Specifically when it comes to Kaylee, who was his love interest, and some of his other friends from his childhood. But then the more he changes things, the more his brain starts to get damaged, and he comes to realize that no matter how many times he changes things, there's always going to be a worse outcome. And he comes to the conclusion that the best outcome is for him not to meet all his friends. Now, this is one of those movies that I watched all the time on HBO and Cinemax. And I just loved how dark and depressing it is at times, that it lends itself to this, what is essentially a time travel and alternate reality story. And because of that, I felt like it was severely underrated. And I also remember how admirable it was for Ashton Kutcher to play against his type at the time, because he was mostly known for being the funny leading man in a rom-com, but here he gets to act against that type. And I just love how this movie excellently conveys how basically his past plays into the future, and how he basically goes in to tries to change things, and not only change things for him, but also the people that he loved during his childhood, particularly Kaylee, who is played by Amy Smart. But then throughout the movie, he realizes that everything he's doing is basically for him, but it may not be the best for everyone else. And I'm going to talk about this movie with spoilers, because there's really no way to talk about this movie without spoiling anything. But like I said, this movie really is depressing as hell, because it deals with suicide, child molestation, child pornography, killing people, being institutionalized, and all that plays into what trauma can do to a person and how people cope with it. Like the first change he made, he basically stopped Kaylee's dad from making the child pornography of them. And so Heaven and Kaylee, they go to college together, they get the happy ending, but then it comes to find out that her father saved all that rage for her brother, who is a sadistic fuck. Evan, in a fit of rage, he kills Tommy and ends up going to jail. And so the second time he changes things, he tries to basically reason with Tommy and to basically stop him from being sadistic, but then Lenny, his friend, kills him. And in the future, he's played by Alden Henson, who you may know plays Foggy on the Daredevil series. He is institutionalized, and Kaylee has become a drug-addicted prostitute. And then the third time is actually a better outcome for everybody else, because Kaylee and Lenny, they're together in college. Tommy, he changed his life around. He's living a Christian life. But Evan, he is a double amputee after he tries to stop the baby and her infant child from opening up the mailbox, which had dynamite in it. And it's because of that moment he is a double amputee. And then his mother, who is sick, she has lung cancer from all the years of chain smoking, as a way to cope with the grief of what happened to her son. And then the fourth and final time he tries to change his things, he sets off a dynamite that accidentally kills Kaylee, and now he's institutionalized, and he doesn't have the journals where he's able to basically start remembering things, and goes back to the moments where he would black out and time travel and change things. But then he comes to realize that it all has to end with him, and it's best that he just stays out of everybody's life, which is what his father, who also has this gift, has. And we even see that his father, who is institutionalized, he tries to kill Evan as a way to break this generational curse. And that also kind of falls into the director's cut, which is, in my opinion, just a little bit more depressing, because yes, the way to break this generational curse is by killing yourself. And so he goes into the moment, he watches a home video of when he was born. And so he goes back into when he was still in his mother's room and basically chokes himself with the umbilical cord. But in the theatrical version, he basically tells Kaylee off and tells him to stay away from them. And they all go on to live separate and happy lives. And then Evan, he burns all the journals. I guess to me, this was really one of the first movies I watched that introduced the concept of how one small change can change the course of one's life. But some of the negatives I've heard about this movie is that there are plot holes pertaining to the time travel and alternate reality elements. But honestly, what time travel movie doesn't have plot holes? I love the hell out of this movie. It is severely underrated and underappreciated, in my opinion. It was one of the first movies I saw where I was like, oh, Ashton Kutcher can be a serious actor. I love the concept and themes that this movie has. And even though this movie can be a bit depressing and dark at times, I feel like it lends itself to what this movie is trying to accomplish. which is about a boy who had a very harrowing childhood. And then as he gets older, he has these abilities that he never realized he had and is part of a generational curse. And so he tries to go back into his past to try to make a better outcome, but then he realizes the best outcome for everybody is if he just wasn't around those kids when he was younger. And I felt this movie excellently illustrated that. I'm going to give The Butterfly Effect the heart eyes emoji.